All right, let's talk Miami Hurricanes. I think it's all clear to say they're the best team in football. I don't think it's really a debate at this point. The way they've handled every single challenge, the way they've stepped up to the plate every single moment this season and really executed at a high level showed itself to bear against the Florida State University Seminoles. Now, look, I know the final score and the final stats will look a little skewed because the Seminoles got a little garbage time score. And look, this is one of the things that can happen when you play a really good offensive coordinator, a really good offense. The numbers can get inflated. But the reality is this Miami Hurricanes team, they're the best in the business. They showed it Saturday night. We'll get into the details and the data and why Miami, I think, is an unstoppable force, the way things look right now, in just a second. But first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, at this point, Miami Hurricanes fans, you're very well aware of the fact that you just defeated Florida State in Tallahassee 28-22. And obviously, the final score was not nearly the way the game felt. It was 14-3 at halftime. It was 28-3, and that was after a touchdown had been taken off the board, a long Tony score. Of course, you guys remember that. It was a total domination performance from the Miami Hurricanes. And then Florida State, to their credit, right, they fought hard. They've got talent. They've got good players. They played to the end of the game. And look, there's some garbage time scoring made the game look closer than it really was, right? But Miami was clearly the better team on the road against a good Florida State team. Remember, this Florida State team in Tallahassee is a different animal than they are when they're on the road, right? This is a Florida State squad that dominated Alabama, dominated the Crimson Tide when the Crimson Tide came down to the Florida Panhandle, and Alabama's just beating the brakes off everybody since, right? A lot of people thought Alabama stunk after week one, and all they've done is kill everybody good, including a really good Georgia squad. So it speaks to how tough it is to go into Florida State. They're on the road there if you're Miami and get the job done. And they did. And frankly, through three quarters, they made it look easy. And it wasn't because they got some insane, inhuman performance. Now, look, Tony is awesome. He's spectacular. But this was a team effort. In fact, let's pull up the box score here, talk about the offense here, Miles, if you don't mind. And you can look at the numbers here, right? Carson Beck, 20-27 for 241 and 4 scores. Good game. Listen, is that a 400-yard game? No. Is that like a 8-touchdown game? No. But it was a good, solid game, right? Good job. You look at the running game, anything spectacular? 32 for 97? Not really. The one reverse was really the only thing that did well. Miami didn't necessarily run the ball particularly well against Florida State, but again, decent enough. How about receiving? Tony was spectacular. I'll admit that. The long touchdown being called back on penalty, those numbers could have been even better. And C.J. Daniels was outstanding, but it's not like they had a 200-yard receiving game, right? It's not like they had like 3 guys with 150 receiving yards. It's not that they got like 3 punt return touchdowns or something ungodly, right? This was a team game. We saw the takeaways on defense. We saw the big 4th down stop. It ended up being a takeaway anyway for the defense. We saw good execution from the offense. It wasn't perfect, right? Miami left a lot of points on the board, right? This game could have been even worse for Florida State before it was all said and done. But when it came time to make the big plays, we're talking about the 4th down touchdown to Tony. We're talking about the 4th down interception, right? The big moments, the big plays, the red zone stop early in the game. Florida State, right, opening drive going right down the field. They get in the red zone. Looks like they're going to pop it in for a score pretty easy. Set the tone early. What does the Miami defense do? Shut them down, hold them out of the end zone, make them kick a field goal. It's their last points until the very end of the second half where they make a run at it and, again, make the score look a lot closer than the game actually was. And I think it just speaks to how Florida State is playing on a snap-by-snap basis. And I think this is where it gets very, very good. I'm sorry, how good Miami is playing on a snap-by-snap basis, excuse me. And I think this is where it gets very good for the Hurricanes going forward. Let's go ahead and pull up some PFF grades here. And I really want to highlight something. Because if you look at these scores on the team here, on the screen here, you can see, obviously, you have to throw Bethune-Cookman and University of South Florida to the side because they were inferior competition. But this was actually, if you go to Florida State's overall grade, right? Notre Dame, Miami graded out 80.8. Against Florida, 81, about the same. Against Florida State, 87, right? On a snap-by-snap basis across the board, the aggregate, all the performances, offensive line, defensive line, skill players, linebackers, safety, special teams, this was the best game Miami has played. And I think that's really important because when you look at the way the game went stylistically, it wasn't perfect, but they were clearly undeniably better. They were better coached. They were more fundamentally sound. They didn't rely on a lot of trickeration. My goodness gracious. I mean, I know they had the flea flicker, but my goodness gracious, how many trick plays did Florida State run? Like 20? Right? Florida State opened up the entire playbook. They threw everything they possibly could and then some at Miami, right? This was the game of the year for Florida State. This was their moment. They needed this game. Miami didn't necessarily need this game. Florida State, this was critically important for them to bounce back from the defeat last season, and they treated it as such. They fought to the very end. They were hyper competitive. The Seminoles, give them credit, they didn't quit. This was a full speed, full bore effort from them and their coaching staff. They threw everything they had out there, and Miami was just better. And that's the sign of a championship team. That's the sign of the best team in football. That when you go on the road against a very good team, Florida State's a good team, scratching and clawing for every inch Florida State was, emptying their entire playbook, the energy of the crowd behind them every second. It's an old school rivalry game coming off a loss. So, Florida State was definitely motivated, hardcore motivated, really desperate for a victory. And Miami was just better. And I think that speaks to how good the squad is for the Hurricanes. This is different than other Miami teams. They play better complementary football. They can win on turnovers. They can win with big plays offensively. They can slow it down if they have to. Their defense can dominate for entire quarters, right? Their special teams is fine. They're very well coached. I watched the game, and the vibe I got was that Norvell and FSU, they were aggressive, but it felt like the moment was maybe a little bit big for FSU, right? It felt like it was the gravity of the situation. You could feel the pressure emanating from the Seminoles and the Seminoles coaching staff. For Cristobal and the Miami coaching staff, more calm, more workmanlike, more methodical. That's the difference between a good team and a championship team. And that's the difference between this Miami squad and prior Miami squads. Now, look, it's a long season. A lot of things can go a lot of different ways. Injuries can happen, slip-ups can occur. But every single challenge Miami's had this season, Notre Dame got it done. South Florida, supposedly frisky good, got it done. Florida Gators, desperate for a win. This is a Florida team that just beat Texas, by the way, got it done. And now you throw, and Bethune-Cookman, yeah, I get it, didn't have a disaster game. Okay. And now you go into Tallahassee, challenge, got it done. At a certain point, we got to look around in the media and look at this Miami squad and say, every single chance, every single opportunity they get it done. And for all but the 4 or 5 minute window there, or however long it was since Florida State kicked that opening field goal and Miami answered with a touchdown, they've led the entire season. It's not that they just answered the bell. It's just that they've been definitively better than every single team in every single facet. And that's sustainable. And that's what great teams do. That's what championships do. That's what the best team in football does. And that's exactly what the Miami Hurricanes are. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Miami fans in the comment section below, obviously an impressive victory for this Hurricane squad, getting a big win on the road. And I want you guys, again, in the comment section, give us your MVP, but go a little different around here. Give us an under-the-radar guy. We know, Beck and Tony, right? Of course, we know the defensive ends, right? But give us a guy that's not getting a lot of press, a guy that you think's having a really good season and had a really great game Saturday night that you think deserves a lot of attention. Put him in the comment section below. But, Miles, I will throw it over to you now. What are your thoughts on everything Miami coming out of this game?
Yeah, it's like you said, this team was dominant. They look like the best team in football. They are the best team in football, and they've proved it week in and week out against a lot of big-time competition. And that's one thing that stands out to me is this is a Miami team that already almost, we're not even quite there halfway through the season. They've been tested a number of times already. How many other teams in the college football landscape have been tested as many times as Miami has? It had Notre Dame early first game of the season. They had South Florida, like you said, supposedly frisky at the time, a ranked team that was supposed to be very good. They already had them. Florida, a team that is SEC competition, and also, like you said, just beat Texas. This is a great showing there against them. And then Florida State as well. This is a team that's been tested time and time again, and they came out very victorious every single time. And one thing I want to point to is they beat the Florida State very handily. Even the garbage time at the end, there was no chance during the game that Florida State was going to win. Even on the field goal, they stopped them with 20 seconds left. If they were to score the touchdown and go for two, they would still be 1 point behind. So they would not have been able to beat Miami in that game. This was a Miami team that dominated. They really never let their foot off the throat, and they were able to take Florida State out with ease. And rolling back 1 week, I want to point out to people, this is a team that held Florida. They beat them 26-7. And this is a Florida team who Texas, supposedly one of the better defenses in the country, scored almost 30 points on Texas yesterday. So they really did a great job holding back some elite quarterbacks. Castellanos is one of the highest rated quarterbacks in all of college football right now. DJ Lagway, very young, very explosive, talented sort of quarterback there. Notre Dame, the beginning of the season, CJ Carr is doing really great this season as well. So they've faced a lot of talent all across the board and done nothing but win and win handily. So I love what Miami's doing right now. I think this is a team doing a lot of really great things and just battle tested, battle hardened. The rest of their season looks easy compared to what they've had to go through the beginning of the season. I think they're going to have some time to tune up and really get ready for the playoff. It would be a disappointment to me at this point if they don't make the college football playoff. They're like destined to make it there at this point in time. So I want to see what they do the rest of the season. It should be smooth sailing. We should see big numbers. I want to see Carson Beck get even more comfortable in this offense and really start to do some crazy, crazy things here. But Miami, they look so good, so strong. Offensively, defensively, it doesn't matter. This team looks dominant. And like I said, my point is they've done it against some really good competition already.
Yeah, and just a couple final points to end on. I like what you mentioned there because sometimes games can feel like, they become a blowout. It becomes, like 28-3 like it did. And, sometimes that can be a tidal wave, right? We see this happen sometimes. So like A&M, a top 10 team, they played Mississippi State last night. And that was like a 3-0 game and 7-3 game. And then in the fourth quarter, A&M just like tidal waved and it just pulled away, right? So that was actually a very competitive game for the Aggies for 3 quarters. Not the case here. Since Miami took a 2-score lead off that flea flicker touchdown to Tony very early in the second quarter, I think with 11 and a half minutes left or so, Florida State never had the football again when it was a 1-score game. And again, the garbage time points, I get it. It makes the game look closer. But Florida State, like you mentioned, I think it's very important. Since early the second quarter, in a game they had to have, a game they've been preparing for all offseason, never had the chance with the football, with the chance to take the lead after that point. That's domination, guys. Florida State's not a bad football team. That only happens to bad football teams or when good teams play or when championship teams play good teams, right? That's the only time that happens. That's the kind of level of effort we got from Miami last night. And people I guarantee there's going to be a lot of people that discount that because they look at the final score and they say, well, it was a 6-point game. Hey, good win for Miami, but still, how good are they really? Guys, I'm just going to reiterate it one more time. Since early in the second quarter, the Florida State Seminoles, a top team in football with a lot of NFL talent, desperate for a victory, coming off a loss, a game of the year for them at home, never again had a chance to take the lead, ever. That's domination. And the beautiful part about Miami is that if you look over the course of their wins so far, they do it a bunch of different ways. Week 1 against Notre Dame, you brought it up, balanced passing and rushing. How about week 3 against South Florida? I mean, that was a total domination, but again, balanced passing and rushing. How about last week against Florida? A little bit more on the running game, right? A little bit more on power football, a little less Carson Beck, a little bit of an off game for Beck. This week, I think a little bit better game for Beck, and then you factor in the defense as well. So this is a team that can beat you a bunch of different ways. Last year, a lot of the time it came down to Ward doing magical things. And look, he had a magical season. This year, they don't need Carson Beck to be magical. They need him to step up and have big moments, and he had an incredible first 3 quarters of just ruthlessly efficient with some big-time, big boy throws, undeniably so. But sometimes they can turn to the running game and they'll be dominant. And of course, their defense for the most part of the season has been outstanding as well. This is a team that can beat you a bunch of different ways. And every single time they've been challenged, every single moment they've stepped up. Every single opponent that they've played, there's been some, hey, this team can do this. What can Miami do to counter it? And they've had the counter. They've had the answer every single time. There's a lot of football left. I get it. But right now, at this point, looking at the landscape of college football, there's only one team that's head and shoulders above the rest, and that is the Miami Hurricanes.